Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, and as we conclude the 5-part series on stress, let's focus today on how to manage family stressors. It's one thing to define, it's one thing to give statistics, it's one thing to talk about the behaviors, and it's one thing to talk about the dynamics of stress, but how do you manage stress? What are some of the things that each person might be able to do to minimize or to mitigate, to relieve the stressors in their day-to-day lives? According to the Mayo Clinic, there are 5 primary stressors in order to talk about how to manage stress. We must first understand what those stressors are. So Mayo Clinic says, let's talk about the 5 primary stressors. It is important to understand where this stress originates, and then we can talk about how to work through the stress. First is work. Getting fired is the 8th most stressful event one will ever experience, according to the Holmes Race Stress Indicator. Relationships. Divorce, according to the Holmes Race Stress Indicator, is the 2nd most stressful event that a person will ever experience. Life changes. Death of a spouse, according to the Holmes Race Stress Indicator, is the number 1 most stressful event a person will ever experience. Life change that is good, which is birth, or sad, which is death, are both stressful and must be managed. Number 4, environmental changes. The worst are noise and too much light. As a matter of fact, when military and other agencies torture people, they torture them by depriving them of darkness. They put in their lives perpetual light. Secondly, they will escalate noise, loud music, loud sounds, aggravated, frustrated sounds, and that is designed to confuse the senses. So there are 2 things environmentally that really lends itself to stress: noise and too much light, and number 5, self-generated stress. One's own inner thinking that is not realistic. If a person is too perfectionistic in their drive, or if a person is too pessimistic or negative in their thinking, this will create undue stress in that person's own life. Here's some to-do lists for stress relief. Number 1, learn to value healthy relationships and connect to some group, like a church, social groups, family. Secondly, learn to deal with the stressors instead of ignoring and running from them. You can talk about I am stressed, but unless you deal with the things that are stressing you out, you will continue to be stressed. Stress is a byproduct resulting from the stressors. So learn to deal with the stressors. Sometimes that means getting those stressors out of your lives. Have you ever been around people that are pessimistic, that are negative, that are always looking for basically bad news, and are always looking for conflict, and are always creating chaos wherever they go? Those are stressors. And in order to mitigate those stressors, sometimes it requires the action of dealing with the stressors by moving away from them, getting them out of your life. Empower yourself to recharge yourself. In other words, learn to relax. There's nothing wrong. In fact, there's some therapeutic involved in relaxation. Remember the old childhood saying, all work and no play? It makes Jack a dull boy. Work, 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 work. Fix this, fix that. I've got to go here, I've got to go there, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. That will stress out people around you, and it will make people not want to be around you. What about you being around people who have never learned to relax? You may need to mitigate that stressor by sometimes removing yourself from an environment that does not understand relaxation. Schedule some downtime for you. Balance giving and receiving support to others. Most people enjoy being the recipients of a gift, or the recipients of help, or the recipients of praise, the recipient of appreciation. But at some point, you must learn to give, yes, but also to receive. Make sure that you position yourself every now and then to be the recipient of support from others. Allow someone to help you. Allow yourself to receive praise and accolades from other people. Next, respect boundaries. There are people who create stressors in their lives by perpetually crossing boundaries that they shouldn't. Sometimes we call that pushing the envelope. Be very careful about pushing the envelope and crossing boundaries that you know on the other side of those boundaries there are stressors where people push back, and that's going to create stress in your life. Also, avoid people and avoid circumstances where people are constantly crossing boundaries. It's okay to let people know they've gone too far. It's okay to let people know they are asking of you things that are beyond the scope of their business. It's nice sometimes to be nice when you say none of your business. But in essence, what you're doing is pushing people back across the boundary. Practice being optimistic. Life is not all rain, and life is not always a cloudy day. Look for the perpetual or the proverbial rainbow at the end of the rain. There are some bright sunny days ahead for your life. Practice forgiving. Forgiving is not so much for the other person, but forgiving sets you free. And when you set yourself free, then your anxiety level dissipates and you will be more at rest. Do not sweat the small stuff. It will keep happening regardless. There are things that just happen because of life. Your attitude must rise above the stressors that are below you. And when your attitude is above those stressors, then your stress is going to minimize. In the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 17, verses 28 through 37, there's a story about a young man named David. And David was surrounded almost all of his life with stressors after stressors after stressors. But David learned not to allow those stressors to regulate who he was. Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why comest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the naughtiness of your heart, for thou art come down that thou mayest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go and fight him. You are but a youth, and he is a man from his youth. David said to Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered him out of his mouth. And when he arose after me, I smote him, and I caught him by his beard, and I killed him. Thy servant slew both a lion and a bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them. David would not allow people to stress him because he understood who he was. I'll see you back in class again next time. Don't be late, and don't skip class.